The village of Oakhaven was small and quiet. People knew their neighbors. They shared stories over fences and helped each other with daily chores. The sense of community was strong, and everyone felt a part of the village's heartbeat. They knew the creaking of the old mill wheel and the hoot of the owl in the woods. These sounds were as familiar as the voices of their own family members, a comforting backdrop to their lives. But most of all, they knew Nyla. Nyla was different. She was a mystery wrapped in the everyday life of Oakhaven. Her presence was felt even when she wasn't seen. She was a solitary child, rarely seen in the village square or playing with the other children. While the other kids laughed and played, Nyla watched from a distance, her eyes always observing, always searching for something unseen. Her long dark hair framed eyes that seemed to hold ancient secrets. Those eyes, deep and piercing, often made the villagers uneasy, as if she could see right through them into their very souls. And she always wore a necklace, a strange amulet made of dark stone. The amulet was unlike anything the villagers had ever seen, and it added to the air of mystery that surrounded her. It was her nightly routine that truly set Nyla apart. As the day turned to dusk, and the village settled into the quiet of the evening, Nyla would begin her solitary walk. Each evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, she would make her way to the edge of the village. The villagers would watch her go, their curiosity piqued but their questions unasked. There, nestled among the whispering pines, lay the old graveyard, its weathered headstones casting long shadows in the twilight. The graveyard was a place most villagers avoided, especially as night fell. It was here, among the graves, that Nyla seemed most at peace. She would sit for hours, her small figure barely visible among the headstones, as if she were communing with the spirits of the past. The villagers whispered about her, creating stories and legends about the girl who walked with shadows. Some said she could speak to the dead, others believed she was a guardian of the graveyard. But no one knew for sure. Nyla's true story remained a mystery, one that the village of Oakhaven would never fully unravel. The villagers whispered about Nyla. She was a mystery, an enigma that no one could quite understand. Her presence was like a shadow that loomed over the village, always there but never fully seen. Some said she spoke to the spirits in the graveyard. They claimed to have seen her under the pale moonlight, her lips moving in silent conversation with the unseen. The stories grew with each telling, becoming more elaborate and more terrifying. Others claimed she was cursed. They believed that misfortune followed her like a dark cloud, bringing bad luck to anyone who crossed her path. The superstitions ran deep, and fear spread like wildfire. The braver souls dismissed such talk as nonsense, but even they couldn't deny the strangeness of the girl. They would laugh off the rumors in public, but in the quiet of their homes, they too felt a shiver of unease. Fear, like a creeping vine, began to wrap itself around the village. It was subtle at first, a whisper here, a glance there, but soon it became a palpable presence, something that could be felt in the air. Mothers kept their children close when Nyla was near. Men avoided her gaze. The village, once a place of warmth and community, began to feel cold and distant. Even the village elders, wise in the ways of the world, seemed uneasy in her presence. They had seen many things in their long lives, but Nyla was something they could not explain. One crisp autumn evening, as the leaves began to turn, a group of boys gathered near the well. The air was filled with the scent of fallen leaves and the promise of winter. They were young and full of bravado, eager to prove their courage. The well was their meeting place, a spot where they could share secrets and dares. The talk, as it often did, turned to Nyla. She was the subject of their bravest tales and their darkest fears. "Have you seen her lately?" one boy whispered, his voice trembling slightly. The question hung in the air, heavy with anticipation. "She was by the old miller's grave last night, talking to herself." The boys exchanged uneasy glances, each one wondering what Nyla's presence at the graveyard could mean. The night seemed to grow darker, the shadows longer, as they pondered the mystery of the girl who spoke to spirits. "She's probably just lonely," another boy scoffed, though his voice lacked conviction. The night was thick with an unsettling silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves and distant hoot of an owl. "Maybe we should go down there and scare her a little, teach her a lesson." The idea seemed to spark a mix of excitement and fear among the group. The other boys murmured in agreement, their fear momentarily forgotten in the face of their bravado. They huddled closer, their faces lit by the dim glow of the oil lamp, casting long, eerie shadows on the ground. They crept through the shadows, their hearts pounding in their chests, until they reached the edge of the graveyard. The air grew colder, and the boys could feel the weight of the night pressing down on them. And there And there she was, Nyla, sitting by a moss-covered headstone, her head bowed as if in prayer. The moonlight bathed her in a ghostly glow, making her look almost ethereal. The boys exchanged nervous glances. They had come this far, but now, standing at the edge of the graveyard, their courage began to waver. This was their chance to prove their bravery, to show Nyla that she couldn't just wander around the graveyard at night without consequence. They steeled themselves, each boy drawing on the collective courage of the group. "Hey Nyla!" one of the boys called out, his voice cracking slightly. The sound echoed through the graveyard, making the boys jump. "What are you doing here all alone?" The question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of their collective fear and curiosity. Nyla slowly lifted her head, her eyes reflecting the pale moonlight. She looked at the boys, her expression unreadable. The boys held their breath, waiting for her response, the night around them growing even more silent, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Nyla's lips parted, and she spoke in a voice that was both soft and firm. "I'm not alone. The spirits of the night keep me company." Her words sent a shiver down the boys' spines, and they glanced at each other, unsure of what to do next. The bravado that had carried them this far began to crumble. They had expected to find a scared girl, but instead they found someone who seemed to belong to the night, someone who was not afraid. One by one, the boys began to back away, their earlier confidence replaced by a growing sense of unease. The graveyard, which had seemed like a place to prove their bravery, now felt like a place they did not belong. Nyla watched them go, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips. She turned back to the headstone, her presence blending seamlessly with the shadows of the night. The boys' footsteps faded into the distance, leaving the graveyard once again in silence. The village would hear of their adventure, but the boys would never speak of the chill that had settled in their bones, nor of the girl who seemed to be more at home among the spirits than the living. The night held its secrets close, and Nyla remained a mystery, a figure who would forever haunt their memories.